Welcome to Superhero Conversations, a podcast saga with innovation leaders who are at SuperNova, the #1 tech innovation event in Benelux. I'm your host, Dominic Dzichuk, and joining me today is the Resilience and Creativity Mastermind, Conn Bertish. Welcome.
Thank you, Dominic. It's amazing to have me here. I'm very excited. Yeah, I love Antwerp, and I should have been here before, but now I'm here.
That's just amazing. So, Conn, please tell our listeners, what is your story? How did you end up doing what you are doing now?
Oh, perfect. I think it's interesting that the reason that I'm here is because I got brain cancer, and I had been the creative director of a bunch of big advertising agencies in South Africa. I'm from Cape Town, and I had been the creative director of Saatchi & Saatchi and JWT, and one day I started getting these headaches, and they were literally like jabs in the back of my neck. They would only last for about 5 seconds, but they would literally bring tears to my eyes. It was so painful. It was like somebody was sticking a knife in there, and I would have to hold onto the wall, and tears would come to my eyes, and I was like, "Whoa, what was that?" And then it was gone. And I went to all these doctors, and the doctors said to me, "Conn, it's tension headaches. Advertising is very stressful, Conn. It's a stressful business." And I said, "Yeah, okay." And then they gave me vitamin B injections in my buttocks, and then the headaches continued, and I realized I started to slur my words like a little bit, and I went back to the doctors, and they said, it's tension headaches, Conn. Advertising is a very stressful business." And I said, "Yeah, well, you said that last time." And then they gave me another vitamin B injection in my buttock. And then the weeks went by, and it started getting worse. And then eventually I was writing a note to my wife. Somebody had called my house and said, "Can I speak to your wife, Heidi?" And I said, "Well, she's not around, but I'll take your number down." And I wrote down the number and put the phone down. And then I looked at what I had written on the piece of paper, and the writing was really bad. And then I realized I had written the telephone number, which was 083. It started with the numerals 083. I had written 093. So I corrected the 8. Sorry, I corrected the 9 into an 8. And I went 8. And then I looked at the page, and it was still 093. So I thought, that's interesting. So I was curious why my writing was very bad, but then I corrected the 9 into an 8 again, and I corrected it into an 8, and I looked at the page, and it was a 9. So I took another piece of paper, and now I started getting pretty scared, and I wrote the numeral 8 on the piece of paper, and there was a 9. And that's when fear shot up my spine, and I realized, whoa, something is wrong. I'm telling my hand to do something, and it's doing something else. And I realized, okay, something is seriously wrong. And then I managed to go for an MRI scan, and we found a tumor in the back of my brain here. You can actually touch it. Have you ever touched a human brain before?
Oh, I have not.
Have you not?
No.
Because it was too dangerous to put the bone back. So now you're gonna see how Dominic is gonna touch him. His first human brain.
Oh my days.
Dominic, he pushed that very hard. That's why it was very painful for me. No.
Conn, this is the most unbelievable podcast beginning that I ever had. So you went into the MRI, and you did the MRI,
Yes.
and they detected a huge tumor.
Yeah, they found a tumor in the back of my brain. I actually, because I'm a creative guy, I started to play with it, and this is where we talk about play. So because I've been a big wave surfer, competitive Red Bull big wave surfer I've been surfing since I was young. I know how to handle fear, and the best way to handle fear is to not take it too seriously. and to play with it. So when I found the tumor in the back, when they found the tumor in the back of my brain, I worked out the size of it, and it was actually exactly the same size as the Dunlop Pro high altitude competition squash ball. So that's how big it was in the back of the brain. And interestingly enough, once they found it, I realized we explored why I was able to write the top of the 8, but I couldn't cross my midline to perform the bottom of the 8. So I went straight up to perform a 9 because the tumor was blocking my midline. Also, what the tumor was doing was blocking my main vein, which drains your brain fluid down your spinal column. And because the tumor was blocking that vein, the headaches were caused by pressure building up in my brain. When they found the tumor, it was literally emergency surgery. We've got to get that thing out of your brain within the next 72 hours, or you will pass out from the pressure of brain fluid just being unable to release itself. So that was the first thing. I was literally had to prepare myself for brain surgery to try and get as much of the tumor out of my brain as possible within 72 hours. And obviously it was a very scary thing, but I've learned that you have to play with it. You have to screw with it. You have to make the fear your own. And that's when I started to I wrote my first scribble. So I used a lot of scribbles, and I used creativity to express how I'm feeling. I wrote a literal little brief for myself to imagine that my brain wasn't a static thing, because they said on this form that I had to sign, it said that when we're finished with the surgery, we're hoping to get as much of the tumor out as possible, but you must be prepared for the fact that you might be blind when you wake up, or you might be deaf. And this was weird. And it's weird because they put it at number 11 on the list. They said that, or you might not wake up at all, as in you might die. So I thought, why would they put that at number 11? Surely that would be at number 1. Anyway, I called it the world's most scary form I'd ever signed. And then the other one, which was really interesting, it was like number 5 on the list of things to prepare for, is it said, when you wake up, you might not feel like yourself. And I was like, what? That's a bit weird.
This is indeed scary. But tell me, what are the emotions that are going through your mind when you're signing this form, when you're going into that surgery, knowing that there is a possibility and the chances are not low that you either could not wake up at all, or you could wake up with a really, really huge problem.
Yeah. So this is the thing. This is exactly it. So right up front, the first sketch that I did, I imagined my brain was a flexible thing. I imagined my brain was like a flexible, putty type substance that wouldn't be a rigid thing that could break, or they could take the surgeon's knives wouldn't be able to take things out of. My brain would be this flexible thing that would bounce back into shape. And I also I basically did a sketch to tell my entire body that we are all going to work together to make this thing work. We're going to get through the surgery, and imagining I believe in the mind-body connection, and to get every cell in my body to prepare that we were going to be flexible enough to make it through without losing any of those senses, which were obviously important, and I certainly didn't want to die. So that was
the emotion. And the emotion is that I need to prepare myself, every part of the body, not only the brain.
Yeah.
I need to prepare for this life-changing situation.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the thing. When you give yourself a purpose, when people face really scary challenges, the most natural thing to do is to pull away from that scary thing And when we pull away from those things, then we disempower ourselves, and we actually negatively affect our immune systems. That's what happens when people feel helpless. And that's I had given myself a job. My job was to augment all of the treatments ongoing, as well as the surgery. It started off, augment and help myself get through them by having a purpose. So ironically, in the first operation, I died. I wasn't supposed to die, but I died. So I was clinically dead for 2.5 minutes. And then I like to think that I bounced back to life, like I imagined my bouncy brain. Even when I was being pushed into surgery, I even had a sound for my brain, bouncy brain. I called it my bouncy brain, that would get me through the different surgeries. And I was being pushed into surgery. I know this is going to sound crazy to you listeners out there, but I was literally in the pallet being pushed into surgery, and I was going, honestly. And I remember looking up, and the one nurse that was pushing the trolley, he was looking at his friend who was pushing me as well, and he just shook his head and went, this guy's crazy. Maybe we're trying to get the going out of his head. I don't know. But that was it. I always gave myself a job to augment or to participate in the challenge, or the thing that was scary.
Mm-hmm. So your advice for everybody who has a problem, maybe it's not as big as cancer, but to embrace it,
yeah,
and not pull away.
Yeah, exactly. That is everything that I do. Mm-hmm. So the biggest issue in the world right now is people who are feeling very nervous, very anxious, very worried. They're worried about AI. They're worried about retrenchment. They're worried about politics. They're worried about wars. They're worried about the state of the world. They're worried about the environment. And what's the natural thing is that people are pulling back. People are pulling back into their safe space, pulling back from engaging in something. And that negatively affects their immune function, which is why we have the highest levels of anxiety and panic attacks and suicide even.
I think that there's a quote that the heaviest thing in life is not gold or iron, but unmade decisions.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is actually exactly what you teach. And from that experience, that quite harsh experience, and that might sound to our listeners, what did you take out and how did you implement it into your job today?
So while going through, basically in 2013, my oncologist leaned across the table and said to me, Conn, I'm happy to tell you, you could probably die from something else now, which was quite a harsh thing to say. But he said it with humor because he knew that I had been literally augmenting my healing process throughout my brain cancer, because post the surgery, it was found that I had a very rare form of adult brain tumor, and it was malignant cancer that I needed to deal with. And because it was so rare, the oncologist didn't know they didn't have a protocol that existed in the world at that moment for the type of cancer I had, which is more commonly found in children under the age of 5. So they were like very confused as to why I had it, but it made sense to my family and my friends because I was always told to grow up and stop being so childish and stop playing. So it was interesting that I had that type of tumor. And and that's when I started engaging with it.
Mm-hmm. And how did you translate that experience into the thing that you do today?
Yeah.
So you basically teach companies on how to be resilient and creative. Is that a...
Yes, I do. So it came from basically when I beat brain cancer, when I was told by my oncologist, then they did some tests on me because they knew I had been taking a slightly different approach by literally gamifying the disease in my own way and giving myself a role. They did a full body test on me, and they found that my immune function was stronger than your average adult males. immune function, even after I'd been through the rigors of all of the treatments, radiation, chemo, multiple other ones. But my immune function was stronger than your average man's, which was quite confusing for them. And then literally 2 weeks later, two of South Africa's top professors of oncology contacted me and said, Conn, we've got the biggest oncology conference happening in Cape Town in Africa. There are 1,400 oncologists from around the world, and the Minister of Health was supposed to open the conference, but he can't make it, so we want you to do it. And that was the first time I stepped out from being a role as a creative director to somebody who was talking about how do we empower patients to participate and build the resiliency needed to grow their immune system over time and give them a better chance of survival. And that's what I did. And once I did my talk, I literally got a standing ovation from all these oncologists who gave me cards, their business cards saying, help us because we're missing a trick. And the trick is the patient. And when I talk about cancer, the trick is just a human who's facing challenges. And when humans face challenges, they pull back and they feel disempowered. So if you can empower the human, which is what I started to do, so I launched Cancer Dojo, which has helped thousands of cancer patients simply by giving them ways, using creativity in different ways to help them to start engaging with the challenge as opposed to moving away from it. And that's when I launched Cancer Dojo, which won a whole bunch of awards around the world, got me to do keynote talks in probably 18 different countries for Google, for Nestle, for all of these big groups, all about how do you empower people who are facing major challenges using this approach of helping them with giving them a purpose and a way to participate. And that's when I started working on purpose strategy for businesses, working with the likes of, like, as I mentioned, Google, Nestle, locally, most in Africa, the biggest African retailer with 160,000 staff, working with them to find a purpose that all of the employees could engage in and was authentically linked to what the brand does. And that's the work that I do now.
You're mentioning that you're actually bringing purpose and explaining how to do business with a purpose inside the companies. And companies are not initially designed to serve a purpose, but rather to increase the value of their shareholders. How do you combine those at first contradicting views in your speeches?
Yeah, completely. I think, and the thing is, it's unpacking what a purpose really is. It's about for staff. It's about enabling staff and employees to understand what the business is about and what is the reason the business exists. And once you can harness the why, it's like the Simon Sinek why a business exists, what is it providing for its customers, and if you can, and then create a purpose as to what your product enables and at a larger scale. And there's an amazing movement around how businesses are moving towards that, because a lot of them have to report on their ESGs, their environmental, social, and their governance. So if you can link your brand purpose to the environmental, social, and governance projects that you're doing, every business can be purposeful. And again, as soon as your staff realize the purpose of the group and feel like they're part of it, then they're more engaged. And there's incredible statistics around engaged employees. Engaged employees are far more productive. They reduce the burden of cost when it comes to medical. Their mental resiliency is improved. Their employee churn is reduced. All of these things are literal statistics around how a business can be more profitable by empowering their staff to participate in a bigger thing, which is the purpose, and giving them a reason why. It's almost, I did a lot of work as a creative director for big alcohol organizations like Distill and Brandhouse in South Africa. And one of the phrases they had was it was called bar defense. So if you launched a product like it was a cider for men, what bar defense, what would you give the user who's going to order a cider from a bar, a man who's going to order the cider from a bar? What would you give him when that bar defense, when their friends said, "Oh, why are you having a cider? Why don't you just have a beer like us?" And then what if you could give the bar defense to this customer in saying, "Well, that beer is literally brewed in a week, but this cider, geez, it takes 3 months to brew. This is quality, my friend." And that suddenly gives somebody a way to deal with something that's challenging. And the same thing applies.
I mean, there are so many insights that I think that not only people working inside corporates, but every entrepreneur, founder, investor could actually incorporate inside their everyday lives. And you mentioned that you're actually, first initially a creative director. So you work a lot with creativity. How would you define creativity? What does creativity mean to you?
Cool. I'm going to jump back a little bit, because when it comes to giving a staff member a bar defense, why do they work at this company? I work at this company because we do this. So it's turning staff into almost like the ambassadors of the brand, because now they realize they're part of something larger and they can literally participate in it and tell the world, like, this is what I do for a living. And then in terms of what is creativity, well, creativity is a very wide subject, but it's really about creating new ways of thinking, ways of doing, it's a mindset of never being happy with the standard, the ordinary, the straight, the expected. It's about looking for different ways. It's about trying new things. And that comes back to a next question is around, what do people do how do they start living in a way that is more resilient? And it's the same thing about creativity. It's about curiosity, continually challenging yourself to do new and different things, to grow your brain and the neural pathways in your brain to become more flexible, to become more adaptable to a changing world. And that's what creativity is. And that's also what curiosity is. It's moving towards the things that scare you on a regular basis, because we all need our brains to be able to loosen up, because our world is changing fast. It's changing super fast. And we need to change instead of pulling back, we have to move forward. And the way to move forward and embrace the things that scare us is to try them, because once you've tried them, they're not scary. And then you grow a neural pathway in your brain, which allows you, so when you're faced with a challenge, any kind of challenge, innovation challenge, how your brain works is it tries to connect the neural pathways that you have that exist in your brain to come up with a whole range of innovative ideas. The more neural pathways you have in your brain from trying new experiences, the more innovative your thinking is going to be, because there's just more to draw from. There are more links to make.
So I think there's a separate part of your brain that actually is being developed when you solve big challenges and when you are brave enough to embrace. And I think this is one of the most effective ways to not get Alzheimer's, is face new problems, new things every day, and new experiences.
Yeah, 100%. That's exactly what it is. It's about challenging yourself to try new things, especially the things that scare you. And that's like the big wave surfing. You're gonna get smashed, and it's also linked to the growth mindset. You're gonna fail. Embrace failure. It doesn't matter. Everyone's gonna fail. The world's changing so fast. AI is gonna. A whole lot of industries are going to fail. But the way to stay relevant is to push yourself to try new things and learn from the failures that you go through, you're basically optimizing yourself and you're optimizing your brain to be more resilient. And that's the mindset, is to keep trying new things and following a purpose that's larger than yourself. It's also shown to do that, enable you with. So a lot of people say to me, like, what do I do? What should we do? How do I find my purpose, Conn? And I'm like, well, if you haven't got one, don't stress about it. Your job is to explore like all the different things you've never done before. And in that, your purpose is really just to be very curious about the world and to move towards the things that scare you so that you can grow those neural pathways in your brain, which allow you to be more agile in a changing world. And throughout all those experiences you experience, you'll find something that really resonates with you. And that can be your purpose for a few years. Maybe it'll evolve into another thing. But it only starts when you actively engage and start moving forward, because it's easy. Remember, everyone's pulling back. This whole approach is to move forward. And that's why a lot of what I did while going through the scary rigors of cancer was to become part of it, not pull back thinking, oh, poor me, I'm going to hope the drugs will work. I decided to work with the drugs and the chemotherapy and to become part of that solution. And that engagement links back to staff. Engaged staff are more productive. Engaged human beings are less sick. Engaged human beings are more collaborative. All of these things are great kind of boosts for business and for profit.
And what is one mistake that you see companies make when they try to implement the creativity and the resilience mindsets into their culture?
Yeah, I think it's really that question is very relevant, because you have a lot of the neuroscientific link between humans and purpose is clear. The benefit, but a lot of businesses aren't built that way. They're built in the very traditional old way, which the CFOs are running the company and they're looking at the profit line. And it feels like especially shareholder value. You're looking at shareholder value, looking at how you can feed the shareholders the profit at the end of the year. But it's very myopic thinking. If you think from a larger perspective, you need to look at how the business is going to work over the course of the next 5 to 10 years and into the future, especially as the world is changing so fast. So you need to prepare your business and your staff for a changing world. And the best way to do that is to enable purpose within the group and purpose within your staff, because a business fails if their staff are not engaged. Simple. Any business will fail, especially when competitors are doing the opposite. And you've got Gen Zs coming into the workplace who all want to shift the world in some positive way. And they will be they want to work at businesses that have a purpose that is larger than the brand or the business, but still enables profit and makes money. Of course, money comes first, profit is first. But to enable profit, you need to have an engaged workforce. Otherwise, you're fighting against your own employees.
And if you're talking about the mission and the engagement inside the workforce, can you bring any examples of what is the engagement of the workforce?
So, for instance, an example was that I worked with the ShopRite Group in South Africa. So the ShopRite Group has over 30 different brands. It's in 8 different countries in Africa. It's the largest private employer on the African continent with 162,000 staff. And through the nudging of the ShopRite Group's purpose, and then the reframing it, almost like translating it in a way that staff could understand what the purpose was, which in this respect was to uplift our nation every day, and through the work that they did, and then bring the purpose to life for staff. For instance, to tell people on the ground who are working. It's a big retailer, retail brand that has 30 different brands under its roof, to bring the purpose to life for staff while they're working, to say things like that link back to your company's ESGs, things like, by the end of your shift today, you will have helped literally us feed 121 food gardens in townships around the country. By the end of your shift, you will have enabled us to employ 3 unemployed youth every day. By the end of your shift, you will have helped us literally donate 121,000 cups of soup to homeless people every single day, because that was the scale of the group. So suddenly you've got a beautiful virtuous loop where your employee is part of this purpose, and every day they're being fed with, this is what your work enables. This is what our company enables from a purpose perspective, which means that your work has meaning. Your work has meaning. By the end of your shift, you will have helped us divert 50 tons of plastic waste from going into landfill. Your work has meaning. You matter. Your work matters. And when people feel like their work matters and they're following a purpose larger than themselves, they become more resilient. I'm a perfect example of that. Technically, Dominic, I shouldn't be here talking to you at this event. Technically, I should be dead a few times over. You won't get to speak to a lot of brain cancer survivors, and you won't get to speak to a brain cancer survivor whose immune function is as strong as mine is, purely because I follow a purpose larger than myself. And my purpose is to enable people with a purpose to do exactly the same thing.
I think they did a study and analyzed who are the most productive employees. And it turns out the salary had nothing to do with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Had nothing. The meaning, if the employees were thinking that they do a job that brings meaning to their life and that they can help others, they are the most productive employees, and that they can achieve something with that job. I think that's just
brilliant. Are you available for a job? Because you can come work with me. That's exactly, you're 100% right. That's exactly what it is. People who feel like their work and lives have meaning, and that's where I do. My talks are on happy people are harder to kill. Happy people are harder to kill because they follow a purpose larger than themselves. Our immune functions are stronger. It's like me. I'm a perfect example, and I'm going to be doing my talk tomorrow on how you can essentially become happier, healthier, and harder to kill, which is what I do with big brands and their employees.
And I think the maximizing shareholder value comes into play here.
Yes.
By actually having a meaning, having an intrinsic value that you're bringing to yourself, you're actually being more productive and bringing more value to the shareholders.
100%. And that whole thing about like what was it? Bar defense. So the bar defense is basically, hey, where do you work, Dominic? Well, I'm working for this company. Well, what is it like? Well, it's amazing because this is what we do. And this is what I do every day. And suddenly if you've got 1,000 employees, suddenly you've got 1,000 ambassadors that are telling people how amazing the brand is. So, and that's kind of, for me, is where the future of business goes, and how a new generation of businesses and are starting to essentially ignite their entire workforce as parts of the brand, as parts of the brand messaging, because they live the brand. They are the brand, and people are the brand. Without people, you don't have a business.
Conn, I think that childhood is a huge part of who you are today, who I am today.
Yes.
If you could redesign one thing that's how people approach the problems that they encountered during their childhood, what would you just redesign?
Cool. This is the way. So when my brothers and I were young, there are 3 of us, and we are 3 relatively famous big wave surfers. My younger brother is very famous. He's the guy who paddled across the Atlantic on a stand-up paddleboard for 3 months by himself. 3 months across the Atlantic.
Crazy.
My older brother is survived 2 open heart surgeries. We still surf big waves together. I'm the cancer survivor guy. We all still surf. When we were young, we were learning to surf up the west coast in South Africa. There was no one there, and it's wild and it's cold. And my father was this incredible guy. He was like one of the pioneers of surfing and sailing in Africa. He built his own tools, his own yacht. He taught his 3 little boys how to sail and how to deal with strong winds and currents and big waves. And he taught us one simple thing that I remember and I've used throughout my life, and it links to your question is: never fight the ocean. Use its power to get you to where you want to go, which is the talk I'm performing tomorrow. Never fight the ocean, because if you fight against the ocean's, you can't fight. It's too strong. It's too big. But if you learn how the ocean works, then you can learn how you can utilize the ocean to get you to the place you want to go. So in terms of a message for young people and for kids, it's about, and when you're approached with that mindset, there's nothing that is scary. Anything that scares you, you move towards, you understand, and then you use what you thought was scary, you use your insight into that thing to move with it in the direction you want to go. So it's never about saying no or pulling back, running away from it, or fighting against it. It's more about moving towards it, understanding it, creating a relationship with it, and then using that relationship or understanding to shift you to where you want to go. And that's essentially the elixir of becoming happier, healthier, more resilient, more productive, and harder to kill ongoing.
Conn, what is one actionable thing that every listener could do today to build up their resilience?
Perfect. It's a great question, and it's exactly that. So today, when you hear this podcast, for the rest of the week, here's 3 things. Do 3 different things. Try 3 different experiences that you've never done before. And even you could try some that you maybe are most scared of. Some people have never even been into the ocean because they're worried about sharks. I mean, that's a whole nother conversation because only 9 people every year are killed by sharks, and 40 people are killed by cows every year. Wow. That's a fact. But nobody sees a cow and goes, "There's a cow!" They don't do that. Again, they're worried about the fear of sharks, so they don't go in the ocean. But that's why you need to move towards the things that scare you. Try new things. So for your audience, try 3 new things this week. And then next week, try 3 more things. Because every time you try something new, you're basically preparing your brain to start adopting into new experiences and trying new things, which is what we all need our brains to be more adept at a changing world and being able to adopt a pivotability mindset so that your brain can pivot very quickly. In fact, I'm running a training course in the UK. I'm heading after this to the UK called Surfing Cats and the Art of Pivotability. And there are 10 stages to that pivotability to enable you to be able to change as the world changes and come up with new ways that you can participate in the changes.
And those 3 things shouldn't be like whole new and completely crazy things. They can be buying a new fruit that you never tried in a grocery store and so on. Can you maybe bring some examples of what people can do that could evolve over the weeks, for example?
Yeah. So think about even one of the biggest issues we have at the moment is mobile technology and social media, and a lot of us are spending way too much time just with these apps and social media platforms that are designed to keep our eyeballs on them all the time. So look at ways that you can start challenging yourself to use the mobile technology that you have to look at things that are outside of your comfort zone. So look at content that that you wouldn't normally want to do. Give yourself some breaks away from your phone to try new physical things, whether it's cold water immersion, swimming, or whether it's hiking, or whether it's trying a new food. Go to a restaurant you've never been to. Just try new things, and use your phone to challenge yourself to use your phone to listen to podcasts that are outside of your natural yearning to want to, listen to the things that you like.
Like superhero conversations.
Like superhero conversations. Exactly.
Fantastic. Conn, I think this conversation was really valuable, not only for the listeners, but also for myself. So thank you for that. We'll finish it off with 2 quick questions that maybe are the hardest. First, what is your superpower?
My superpower is being able to give people a way forward, to enable humans with a purpose that helps them shift their helplessness into something that they feel more confident and ready to build their own resiliency to go forward. And that I've practiced now for the last, 10 years. And it is a simple transition that people make. They just need a nudge. One of the biggest issues we have at the moment around the world is that people are feeling overwhelmed. And again, they pull back. So all they need is the agency to move forward. They just need the nudge to move forward, and then to give them a purpose that's relevant to who they are, to help them through the process. That's all it is. And what I do is I enable brands and businesses with a purpose that's relevant to their offering, and then bring that to life for their staff so that the staff feel part of it. And that's this beautiful virtuous cycle of essentially the businesses of a new generation, which needs to happen. All based on the fact that the longevity of a business equals their profit, equals happy shareholders, happy staff, happy businesses. And that's kind of what I do.
Fantastic. And my last question is, Conn, what is your dream?
My dream is for the biggest companies in the world to follow my model of purpose first, a purpose that translates from the CEO through the shareholders down to the person, the truck driver, to the shelf packer. They all follow a common purpose that is larger than themselves, so that these businesses are playing more of a responsible role in the context of our world, in the context of where it's going. And basically, I came up with a line a few years ago that was like, brands will save the world, maybe not because they're altruists, but because their audience will want them to. And that's essentially it, is that we have a new generation of humans arriving who are our new consumers. They want to participate and they want to interact with brands and businesses that are doing something beneficial for our world. And so for me, it's a no-brainer.
Conn, thank you for this conversation. And can I give you a hug?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye. Oh, I love it.
Conn.
And I get a hug.
You get a hug. Free hug.
Free hug with every podcast.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was really nice.
Cool.
I loved it. I absolutely loved it.